The midterm exam results were out, and almost the entire class had done very poorly. The teacher, irritated, admonished the students to try harder because her reputation was also at stake. Yet amid that crowd, there was always one exception: Akita Mazamichi, a genius student with messy black hair and round glasses, who once again scored perfect marks in every subject. While his classmates gaped in admiration, Akita Mazamichi merely smiled modestly, saying he was just lucky. Even the teacher held him up as an example to bolster her own credibility. Given that calm exterior, everyone assumed Akita Mazamichi would become a doctor or a future minister. But when he took off his glasses, his eyes revealed a cold, unpredictable look, very different from his earlier modesty. The truth was, Akita deeply despised those around him. In his head was only a thought full of arrogance. "Thanks, you idiots, for making a backdrop for me." For Akita, intellect was the only key. He believed that by studying hard, entering a prestigious university, and getting a good job, his life would be spectacularly successful without needing to care about anything else. Even when a pretty girl proactively approached him asking for tutoring, Akita Mazamichi thought only that the intelligent are the ultimate winners in this world. He coolly brushed off the request as an unnecessary bother. But Akita Mazamichi did not notice that Ikushima's murderous gaze was watching him from behind. Suddenly, an extremely powerful punch landed squarely on Akita Mazamichi, making him let out a single cry of pain in stunned surprise. The attacker was none other than Ikushima, a blonde-haired student with a brutish appearance. He angrily accused Akita of daring to flirt with his girlfriend right in front of him. Taken by surprise, Akita Mazamichi could only tremble and stand there. To him, using violence to solve problems like Ikushima did was foolish and ignorant. Akita told himself that only apes use their fists when displeased. He didn't even bother to explain, believing himself to be on a different intellectual level than this tough guy. Not wanting to waste time on idiots, Akita Mazamichi intended to leave to avoid further trouble. However, Ikushima seemed unwilling to let him escape so easily. A dry, harsh sound rang out that made Akita freeze, sweat beginning to stream down his face. The violent nightmare seemed only to be beginning for the top student. Ikushima blocked the way, looking at Akita Mazamichi with murderous intent. He forced him to kneel and apologize for his contemptuous attitude toward others. And in front of everyone's eyes, the school's top genius fell to his knees without hesitation before someone physically stronger. Rather than feel humiliated, Akita Mazamichi reassured himself that this was a logical action. He knew Ikushima was a national-level karate fighter, and resisting now would only lead to being thoroughly beaten. Even while kneeling, Akita couldn't hide a contemptuous smirk in his thoughts. He told himself that those who rely on brute strength like Ikushima would soon be discarded by modern society. In Akita's worldview, kneeling now was a smart move to preserve his life. He was willing to throw away pride in exchange for absolute safety. Amid the tense atmosphere, a woman's voice rang out mockingly, shattering the silence. A new character had appeared and witnessed the whole incident. Attention turned to a beautiful girl with long black hair and an alluring appearance. It was Rikudo Setsuna, who had appeared with an oddly calm demeanor. Setsuna stepped forward with a mysterious smile, leaving both Akita Mazamichi and Ikushima stunned. She showed no fear and even seemed amused by the humiliating scene. Unfazed by the fighter's strength, Rikudo Setsuna casually issued a surprising challenge. "Next, do you want to fight me?" Ikushima stood frozen, his mind struggling to process the girl's sudden challenge. The sheer audacity of being publicly provoked by someone who looked so delicate sent a wave of disbelief and mounting rage through him. Unable to handle the bizarre situation, Ikushima scoffs and retreats, tossing one final warning over his shoulder as he leaves. Akita Mazamichi is left trembling on the floor, staring up at Rikudo Setsuna's cryptic smile and wondering what kind of person he has just encountered. As Ikushima walks away, Akita Mazamichi remains bewildered. He wonders if this mysterious girl truly drove the violent bully off with nothing but words, effectively saving him from further humiliation. Looking up at Rikudo Setsuna standing before him, Akita Masamichi can't help but feel a strange kinship. He begins to suspect that she, like him, relies on intellect to navigate the dangers of the world. But Rikudo Setsuna isn't finished with her psychological game. She mockingly asks Ikushima if he's running away, a remark that stops the bully in his tracks. Ikushima is clearly confused, having thought the conflict was over. With a sweet yet incredibly condescending smile, Rikudo Setsuna continues her verbal assault. She dismisses Ikushima as merely an athlete, implying that someone bound by competition rules could never handle a real confrontation. She goes even further, flatly declaring that karate isn't a true martial art, especially the traditional style Ikushima prides himself on. Akita Masamichi watches in shock as Ikushima's anger begins to boil over again. Setsuna explains the fundamental flaw of sport-style karate, the concept of controlled strikes, where points are awarded for almost hitting rather than actually causing damage. To her, this is the height of absurdity. She dismissively kicks a small stone, comparing his years of training to a simple game of soccer. To Rikudo Setsuna, what Ikushima calls martial arts is nothing more than a regulated sport played for entertainment. The air between them thickens with tension as Setsuna locks eyes with both boys. She declares her true intent. She isn't just intervening. She's picking a real fight, one where the gymnasium's rules no longer apply. Provoked beyond his limit, Ikushima launches himself forward. Utilizing his national-level footwork, he closes the distance in an instant and throws a punch aimed directly at the girl's face. It's the perfect opportunity for a direct hit. Yet Rikudo Setsuna doesn't flinch. She stands her ground, face calm and eyes fixed on Ikushima as his fist hurtles toward her. At the very last second, Ikushima halts his fist mere inches from her face. It's a calculated move designed to intimidate her, a display of his power and the restraint he can show. Ikushima intended to make her feel the weight of the controlled strikes she had casually mocked, hoping to see terror flash in her eyes as he asserted his dominance. Instead, he sees a smirk spread across Setsuna's face. Before he can react, she reaches up and grabs his stationary fist. In that fleeting moment, a twitch of pure regret crosses Ikushima's features. With a sharp movement, she slaps his arm aside, completely neutralizing his stance. Ikushima realizes too late that he has made a grave mistake by engaging this woman on her terms. Setsuna's expression shifts to predatory delight as she declares that the real fight is beginning. Akita Masamichi watches, mesmerized and terrified, as the scene's dynamics are completely flipped. Ikushima becomes a blur of motion as he unleashes a flurry of strikes. But Rikudo Setsuna remains untouchable. She blocks and dodges every blow with effortless, almost bored grace. Akita Masamichi can hardly believe what he's seeing. This is a man once ranked among the nation's best, yet none of his attacks even come close to landing on this mysterious girl. Setsuna continues to taunt him, mentioning his second-place national ranking in a casual tone that suggests she finds the achievement utterly laughable. Akita begins to realize he's witnessing something far beyond typical schoolyard violence. She lets out a soft, mocking laugh, dismissing his national standing as just average. The insult cuts deep, wounding Ikushima's pride more than any physical blow could. The rage in Ikushima's eyes reaches a breaking point. His face contorts with fury as he realizes he's being humiliated by someone he considered beneath him. Akita can only watch as the situation spirals out of control. Ikushima declares he's going all out, warning Rikudo Setsuna that he won't be responsible for whatever happens next. He's done with games and intimidation. He's out for blood. Rather than fear, Setsuna seems genuinely excited, noting that things are finally getting fun. Ikushima takes a deep, grounding breath, preparing to unleash his most powerful technique. The narrative shifts to explain the specific technique that brought Ikushima to the national tournament. It's a move of incredible precision and speed, a testament to his years of dedicated training. In a standard martial arts strike, power flows from the feet upward, anchoring the fighter to the ground. However, Ikushima's approach is fundamentally different, discarding traditional mechanics for something far more lethal. By launching his hand first and letting his feet follow, he achieves a strike of pure, unadulterated speed. It is a motion so streamlined it's designed to end a fight before the opponent even realizes they're being targeted. Rikudu Setsuna continues her explanation, eyes wide with a manic glint. She tells them to forget about blocking, because when this move is executed properly, the opponent won't even have time to react. They call it lightning thrust. In a blur of motion, Setsuna's fist connects with Ikushima's face. The speed is so immense that the impact sounds like a sharp crack, leaving the national-level athlete completely helpless. Thwack! The force of the blow sends a spray of blood into the air. Akita Mazumichi watches in absolute silence, eyes wide with shock as he witnesses the raw, unfiltered power of Rikudu Setsuna's fighting style. Standing over the fallen Ikushima, Setsuna turns to Akita with a cheerful smile. She casually explains that a weak punch is useless. If you want to knock someone down, you have to strike as if you truly intended to kill them. Akita is mesmerized, realizing there's a deep, terrifying logic behind every move she makes. Akita is breathless. As he looks at Rikudu Setsuna, he doesn't just see violence. He sees a form of lethal beauty he never knew existed. He's trembling, but not solely from fear. Setsuna looks down at the defeated, bloodied Ikushima, mockingly calling his performance impressive. It's clear that to her, he was never more than a temporary amusement. She laughs softly, telling the gasping Ikushima that he's far too weak. She criticizes his form even in defeat, saying that if he wanted to do real damage, he should have stepped in a bit more. To Rikudu Setsuna, this isn't just a win. It's a lesson in the reality of violence. Driven by a sudden, desperate impulse, Akita Mazumichi speaks up. He looks Rikudu Setsuna in the eye and asks the one thing he never thought he'd say. "Can you teach me how to fight?" Setsuna seems amused by the request. Inside, Akita is still calculating. He believes that if he can get close to her, a predator like Ikushima will never dare mess with him again. He convinces himself this is just another smart move. Setsuna reaches out, her hand gently cupping Akita's face. She echoes his thought with a chilling smile, agreeing that yes, this is indeed a very smart move. Akita is paralyzed by her touch. The distance between them closes as Setsuna pulls him near. Akita blushes, his heart racing at the intimacy. He thinks he successfully manipulated the situation to his advantage, until the mood shifts. Whack! Without a moment's warning, Rikudu Setsuna strikes Akita directly in the face. The shock is instantaneous, a brutal betrayal of the delicate moment they had just shared. Akita reels back, clutching his face as blood gushes from his nose. "GWH," he cries, his mind reeling. He can't understand why the girl who just saved him would suddenly turn her violence on him. "B-blood." Akita stammers, staring at the red stains on his hands and the floor. He's never felt this kind of pain before, and the sight of his own blood sends him into pure panic. Setsuna just watches him, her expression unreadable. Setsuna's voice is calm, almost melodic, as she tells Akita to imagine. She's about to tear down his entire worldview and replace it with her own tattered reality. She paints a picture of the savannah, a place where nature's laws are absolute. She shows him a lion tearing into a zebra, a scene of raw, unapologetic survival. This is her world. With a sweet, terrifying smile, she asks him, "Would you pat the lion's head and say, 'Good boy, good boy'?" She's mocking his attempt to befriend or use her, showing how absurd his logic truly was. Akita, still bleeding and shaking, admits he would never do such a thing. He'd just get eaten. Setsuna laughs heartily, pleased that he finally understands the fundamental rules of predator and prey. She leans in close again, her eyes piercing. "It's the same here," she whispers. To Rikudu Setsuna, the school hallway is no different from a savannah. It's a place where the strong devour the weak. She kicks him again, another sharp reminder of her dominance. Akita lies on the ground, struggling to breathe as the reality of his situation finally sinks in. He is no longer the genius in control. He is the prey. Setsuna mocks his confusion, asking why he ever thought he wouldn't get hit. To her, it's obvious she is the stronger one in this space, and therefore his safety was never guaranteed. Akita can only gasp in pain. She dismisses everything Akita believed in: justice, morality, the law, and even love. To Rikudu Setsuna, these are all fiction, comforting lies people tell themselves to hide from the brutal truth of power. Setsuna stands over the broken Akita Mazamichi, telling him that right now she can do whatever she wants to him. That is the only fact that matters in this moment of violence. Law and morality are nowhere to be found. Akita Mazamichi looks up at her through his fear, his carefully constructed worldview shattered. Though her philosophy is alien to him, he knows with absolute certainty she's right. Every smart move he's ever made has only led him deeper into this moment of utter helplessness. Trapped under Rikudu Setsuna's cold smile, Akita accepts the undeniable truth. His life is in her hands, and there is no law or logic that can save him now. With his pride completely broken, the only option left is to cast aside his dignity and submit to the predator standing over him. Akita Mazamichi remains pressed against the cold floor, his head bowed in absolute submission. The genius student who once believed his mind could solve any problem has been reduced to this by the sheer weight of Rikudu Setsuna's terrifying presence. In his mind, Akita sees the image of a dog begging for mercy, a cruel metaphor for his current state. Meanwhile, Rikudu Setsuna watches him with a shifting expression, from cold indifference to a bright, unsettling smile that reaches her eyes but carries no warmth. Setsuna squats beside the broken boy, looking at his bloodied face with obvious satisfaction. She calls him a good boy and orders him to remain in that submissive position for the rest of his life. Akita can only stare at the floor, his nose still dripping blood. Akita's inner monologue is a tangle of conflicting thoughts. He tries to rationalize his behavior, wondering whether this was still a smart move, or if his decision to bow came from pure, unfiltered shame and the instinct to survive at any cost. He reflects on the moment the violence erupted and realizes that no matter what logic he tried to apply, his reactions were driven by something far more primal. It wasn't intellect guiding him. It was raw instinct responding to a superior predator. The memory of the beating blurs into a feverish dream. Akita sees himself flung around like a rag doll, a spray of blood marking his total defeat. He whispers that he had a dream, one that will soon haunt his waking hours. In this dark, twisted dream, Akita imagines himself not as the victim, but as someone strong. He envisions a version of himself who can wield violence as freely as Rikudu Setsuna, a dark hunger for power beginning to take root in his subconscious. The dream intensifies, filled with sweat, blood, and a desperate struggle for dominance. Akita's mind becomes a whirlpool of repressed emotions and new trauma, struggling to process the reality of the violence he just endured. Suddenly, Akita Mazamichi bolts upright in bed, gasping for air. His heart pounds against his ribs as he realizes he's safe in his own room. He clutches his head, muttering that this was truly the worst experience of his life. The next day at school, Akita is a mess of bandages and slings. Ikushima's girlfriend approaches him, worried because Ikushima hasn't been seen since the incident. Akita lies through his teeth, desperately wanting to believe yesterday was just a horrific nightmare. Akita tries to pull himself together, telling himself that only fools resort to violence and that he must be smarter than that. He stares at the classroom door, hoping to move on and forget the girl who shattered his pride. He sits at his desk, arms in slings and a patch on his cheek, trying to focus on schoolwork. He convinces himself he'll never see her again. Just then, the teacher enters and announces they have an important announcement. The door opens and Akita's heart stops. Rikudu, Setsuna walks in as the new transfer student. She smiles at the class and lists her hobbies: cooking, sewing, watching theater, then adds with a wink and violence. A chilling silence falls over the classroom as the students process her words. Akita Mazamichi is frozen in his seat, eyes wide with pure terror as his nightmare becomes a permanent reality. Setsuna doesn't miss a beat. She instantly recognizes Akita and calls out to him in front of everyone, cheerfully praising how great yesterday's violence was. The teacher is confused, but the damage to Akita's sanity is already done. Setsuna leans close to the trembling Akita, her eyes holding a playful yet lethal glint. She whispers a promise that chills him to the bone. "Let's do it again sometime." As the reality sinks in, Akita Mazamichi realizes his quiet life of intellectual superiority is over. This is the start of his journey with Rikudu Setsuna, a story of absolute, unrelenting violence. A week has passed since Rikudu Setsuna transferred to the school. She seems to have fully integrated, greeting everyone each morning with a radiant smile. With her attractive looks and cheerful personality, Setsuna quickly becomes the center of attention in the class, surrounded and adored by friends. But in the corner of the room, one person watches her with a completely different expression. That person is Akita Mazamichi. No matter how perfect Setsuna appears, he cannot forget the horrifying moment he first encountered her. That memory continues to haunt him. He remembers clearly how she effortlessly took down the karate fighter Ikushima, and immediately afterward, she did not hesitate to give him a similar gift. The result was a long list of injuries: a broken nose, a fractured left ulna, and numerous bruises. Doctors estimate it will take him up to 2 months to fully recover. Even now, those wounds still ache. Akita not only harbors resentment, but his hatred grows when he sees her carrying on as if nothing happened. And yet Setsuna casually comes over to greet him in a sweet voice. This makes Akita shudder. How can she smile after knocking him unconscious? When she innocently asks about his well-being, Akita snaps. He is furious that the person who injured him is playing the concerned stranger, checking on the victim. His outburst draws the class's attention. A Jairu classmate approaches curiously, forcing Akita to quickly lower his voice and force a strained smile to dispel suspicion. He tells himself to act smarter and not reveal anything unusual. When the others ask about Ikushima's absence, Setsuna only smiles and says she doesn't know, sending a chill down Akita's spine at her masterful acting. The truth is neither Akita nor Ikushima dares admit they were defeated by a girl. Akita resolves to keep absolute distance from Setsuna until graduation. The dismissal bell rings, students hurry home or head to clubs. Akita begins his usual trip home by train. But ironically, he encounters Setsuna on the same train. Akita's heart races. He tries to avoid her gaze, hoping not to be noticed. He wonders where she lives and where she's headed. When Setsuna gets off at Mishuku Station, Akita breathes a sigh of relief, finally escaping that suffocating pressure. Mishuku, also known for the bustling Kabukicho district. It's a commercial hub, but, in reality, a red light area full of traps and danger. Though he told himself to stay away, curiosity drives Akita. He wonders what a schoolgirl like Setsuna is doing in such a seedy place after school, and his feet quietly follow her. Lost in tailing her, Akita fails to watch his surroundings. Thud! He accidentally bumps into a woman walking by. A bad feeling flashes through his mind. The woman starts making a scene, complaining that her expensive dress was stained. Akita frantically apologizes, but she clearly has no intention of letting it go. At that moment, a white-haired young man with a thug swagger appears. He's Zen, and with that big brother tone, Akita realizes he's within the sights of cheap extortionists. They corner Akita in an alley and start rifling through his wallet. Bills are counted casually, while Akita can only stand and watch in helpless fear. "You're lucky, kid." Zin grins as he holds Akita's 30,000 yen. He even threatens coldly that without the money, Akita might not have walked away alive. Inside, Akita is seething. He despises these people, seeing them as fools who use violence to make money. But his intellect is worthless in this moment. His hand clenches, but reason restrains him. He knows he can't beat this gang, and causing trouble with the police would jeopardize his academic future. To him, violence is for the thoughtless. The thugs walk away, satisfied with their haul, leaving Akita Mazumichi alone in the shadow of his own humiliation. Once again, his intellect proves useless against the crude reality of raw power. He remains a defeated scholar in a world governed by monsters. But just as the silence of despair begins to settle, a familiar figure appears at the alley mouth. It's Rikudo Setsuna. She stands watching the scene with an inscrutable gaze. Is she a guardian angel or the herald of an even darker nightmare? Setsuna's arrival thickens the tense atmosphere in the alley. She stands smiling, but her eyes flare with aggression, startling both Zin and Akita Mazumichi. Is she really going to fight? Akita thinks, trembling. Akita can't believe his eyes. It's a 1-against-3 fight, and the opponents are burly, battle-ready men. But Setsuna doesn't hesitate. She charges at the group like a whirlwind. A powerful flying kick is launched, but instead of hitting the ringleader, the kick lands squarely on Akita Mazumichi's face. A dry thud echoes amid everyone's shock. Blood sprays from Akita's nose, splattering into the air. The kick is so sudden and cruel, he has no time to react or defend himself. Splat! That gruesome sound tears through the alley silence. Setsuna lands as lightly as a cat, while Akita collapses to the ground, clutching his bloodied face. Zin's thugs freeze at the inexplicable act. What the hell? Akita utters in pain. What the hell are you doing? Akita yells in fury. In response, Setsuna gives him an innocent look and calmly explains that she meant to take him down with that kick, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. She looks him straight in the eyes and blurts out bluntly, "That action just now wasn't like you at all, Akita-san." The loaded remark makes him realize she's far from an ordinary schoolgirl. Akita is completely at a loss. He can't fathom what this girl is thinking. Not like me. Do you seriously not get the situation right now? Meanwhile, Setsuna casually invites him to leave, entirely ignoring Zin's gang. Shin feels humiliated. He won't let some schoolgirl look down on him like that. "You messing with me, kid?" he roars, while Akita can only stammer Setsuna's name in utter panic. He threatens to kill them both if they continue to mock him. But Zin suddenly changes tone. Seeing Setsuna's beauty, he starts to get lewd. He grabs her jacket and jeers. Not bad-looking. Setsuna's eyes go vacant, chillingly cold. He propositions her to do a little job to pay off her boyfriend's debt. Akita stands behind, mouth agape at the brazenness of the man. Zin doesn't realize he's playing with fire by mocking Setsuna's silence as cute. Seeing no resistance from Setsuna, Zin grows bolder. He slings an arm around her and asks sarcastically if she's campaigning for a nonviolent movement. Little does he know, it's the last moment his hands will remain intact. Crack! A horrific sound rings out. Setsuna snaps Zin's arm in the blink of an eye. She acts decisively and mercilessly, leaving the amateur thug unable to comprehend what just happened. The silence is shattered by the sound of bones breaking. Zin clutches his bloody face, mute with pain. Setsuna coldly explains that grabbing a foe or letting someone invade your personal space without guarding or attacking is the deadliest mistake. Zin's cohort screams begin to echo through the alley. Beside the writhing Zin, his companion also begins to panic. Setsuna asserts that allowing an enemy into one's personal space while foregoing both offense and defense is nothing but a fake, non-violent surrender. With a radiant yet hollow smile, Setsuna declares, "Of course I'll beat you." The contrast between her pretty face and the violent words makes every witness shudder in fear. Zin's underlings rush in to avenge their boss. "You little brat," they shout. But Setsuna is unflinching. Her gaze is razor-sharp, ready to meet every attack. The real fight has now begun. One by one, each man is felled by Setsuna's brutal and efficient strikes. She wastes no movement. Every punch and parry carries overwhelming force, leaving opponents only able to howl in pain. Guh! Ugh! The groans resound. In minutes, Setsuna stands triumphant in the alley, the bodies of the braggart extortionists scattered at her feet. She keeps that same smile, the smile of an absolute victor, without remorse or pity. The burly youths lie sprawled on the ground, blood streaming from noses and mouths. Zen is no exception. He cradles his wounds, trembling in utter humiliation. The power of the intellect Akita worshipped is now utterly eclipsed by Setsuna's fists. Zen's companion has completely collapsed. She recoils in fear, unable to believe the pretty classmate before her is such a terrifying monster. What? You're a freak. Get away from me, she screams in desperation. She starts sobbing, begging Setsuna for mercy with the plea, I'm a woman. She hopes social convention will spare her, that men and women will go easy on the weak, but she is gravely mistaken facing an antisocial being like Setsuna. Whack! A direct, uncompromising punch slams into the woman's face. Setsuna shows no hesitation. The blow is strong enough to deform the victim's features. No mercy, no leniency, only pure violence. As she delivers the crushing blow, Setsuna offers a chilling explanation of her philosophy. Violence is equal for everyone, regardless of gender. To her, the fist is the ultimate equalizer, a raw power that effortlessly strips away the masks of social etiquette and civility. Akita Masamichi stands paralyzed, frozen by the sheer brutality of the scene. It isn't just her overwhelming strength that terrifies him, but her total disregard for moral boundaries or societal norms. In a heartbeat, she has left 4 people broken and bloodied, yet she remains hauntingly calm, as if she exists entirely outside the laws that govern everyone else. Rikudu, Setsuna's philosophy of violence, is truly chilling. She has no concept of social norms or deference. Once she decides to hit, she does so without hesitation, regardless of who the opponent is or what social rules dictate. Violence for her is a pure instinct. Looking into those deep eyes and that indifferent smile, Akita Masamichi realizes a horrifying truth. This girl is a genuine antisocial individual, someone outside all ordinary moral rules. Seeing Setsuna approach, Akita instinctively takes a defensive stance despite his arm still being in a splint. But Setsuna simply tilts her head in innocent puzzlement. Why are you guarding like that? Did you think I'd hit you? The contrast between her pretty face and her earlier brutality leaves him even more bewildered. So what do you think that flying kick to my face just was? Akita yells in fury. But in response to his anger, Setsuna only smiles gently, insisting she had no intention of hitting him. Her nonchalance makes him feel like he's the one who's the problem. With her hands still stained by the blood of those she defeated, Setsuna presses her palm to his cheek and smiles sweetly. We're friends, right? The affectionate question carries a suffocating pressure that leaves Akita speechless. Friends? Akita is stunned as he watches Setsuna's retreating figure. He can't believe someone who just caused that bloody scene could speak so naturally and gently. A friendship that begins with punches is hard to accept. The scene shifts to a luxurious building, the lair of those in the underworld. Zen's crew, the ones Setsuna taught a lesson, now look pathetic, faces wrapped in bandages, trembling as they report the incident to their boss. In a haze of cigarette smoke, Sujajy, the powerful pimp boss, smirks sarcastically upon hearing that his men were beaten up by a schoolgirl. To him, this is an unacceptable humiliation to the gang's reputation. The title of Chapter 3 appears, Violence and Friendship. Sujajy can hardly believe his ears. He asks skeptically, You really got taken down by a third-year girl? Zen and his men bow awkwardly, unable to meet their boss's gaze. Zen hurriedly explains, but Sujajy seems uninterested. To vent his anger and assert dominance, Sujajy brutally beats the woman who is with Zen. He lands savage punches on her beautiful face, ignoring her screams and pain. To Sujajy, violence is the only way to maintain power and obedience. He glares threateningly at his subordinates. A frightening silence fills the room, broken only by the terrified gasps of Zen and the defeated men. Even a small mistake now could cost them their lives. They sit around the table, guessing that Setsuna must be a martial arts expert to act so decisively. Sujajy sits silently in the center as a dark, cruel plan begins to form inside his scheming mind. Zen clutches his broken nose, insisting the girl is extremely dangerous. Sujajy sneers, calling Zen weak for not knowing how to handle women. He scolds the girl for failing and tosses her aside like a broken toy. A gleam of cruelty lights Sujajy's eyes. Then kidnap that girl. He decides not to seek revenge with ordinary punches, but to pursue a dirtier objective. He sees Setsuna as a potential windfall for his illicit business. Sujajy outlines a plan to film obscene videos with Setsuna to attract customers and make money. To him, a beautiful, strong schoolgirl would be the perfect card to boost profits. He has no idea he's about to run into a real demon. The henchmen still tremble, worried that kidnapping and illegal filming will draw police attention. But Sujajy only sneers in disdain. He regards the law as rules for the weak, while the strong like him can do whatever they want. Sujajy sighs in disgust at the cowardice of the younger generation. He resumes tormenting the poor girl, forcing her to kneel at his feet. He believes absolute submission is the clearest proof of his masculine power. He unbuttons his pants, revealing a swath of rippling abdominal muscles. Sujajy believes that when the body reaches perfection, a man feels invincible, a blind arrogance that drives all his cruel actions. Sujajy revels in a godlike sensation. He believes that no matter how fiercely a woman resists, once she is in his hands, she becomes merely a tool to satisfy his lust and power. A perverted, sick mindset boils within him. He slams the woman down roughly, hurling insults that when a man has strength, women are nothing but trash beneath his feet. Sujajy's cruelty seems boundless, and he's preparing to unleash it all on Setsuna. After the psychological torture, Sujajy smiles smugly and invites his men to hit the gym to build strength. He believes muscles are the foundation of every victory, a meticulous preparation for the upcoming kidnapping. The next day at school, the atmosphere inexplicably brightens. Setsuna beams as she runs to Akita's desk, flashing a sunny smile and inviting him to have lunch together. Her presence always puts Akita on edge. Still reeling from the previous day's brutality, Akita tries to turn her down. But Setsuna isn't taking no for an answer, playfully insisting that she's brought a special bento just to celebrate their new friendship. The lid pops open to reveal a bizarre, muscle-building feast of skinless chicken and protein shakes. Setsuna beams, chirping that protein is the best way to heal wounds faster. A cheerful yet chilling reminder of the very injury she inflicted upon him. Setsuna smiles brightly, urging Akita to enjoy the bento she painstakingly prepared. Yet Akita's mind is filled only with images of the wounds the supposedly kind girl standing before him inflicted. A care so unsettling it sends chills down the spine. Akita slowly removes his glasses. His gaze becomes suddenly serious and melancholy. In stark contrast, Setsuna hums cheerfully as if the world is all pink and pleasant. The disparity only highlights how abnormal her personality is. The reason we eat lunch together is because we're friends, right? Akita asks hesitantly to confirm this strange relationship. Setsuna immediately replies with an enthusiastic, untroubled yes, as if their friendship is the most natural thing in the world. Inside, Akita keeps replaying Setsuna's thunderous strikes against him and Akushima. He tells himself to temporarily set aside the fake friendship atmosphere so he can see her true nature. What kind of friend attacks so mercilessly? Akita fixes his gaze on Setsuna, and decides to get straight to the question that's been nagging him. He snaps, "Why me? Why did you choose me for this so-called friendship?" Akita argues there are countless stronger, more deserving people out there, Ikushima being a prime example. But Setsuna just laughs, saying choosing friends is never based on someone's strength or weakness. Her view of the world is truly different. She suddenly leans in close to his ear and whispers a haunting line that leaves Akita speechless. "Because you and I are very similar." Her cold breath and voice send a jolt down his spine. Similar in what way? Akita asks in shock, only to receive a mysterious, giggling smile from Setsuna. Just as the tension peaks, a Jairu classmate appears and cuts in. "What's this? Are you two arguing like lovers?" Her innocent question makes Akita hastily wave it off, while Setsuna maintains her frighteningly calm demeanor. A horrifying flashback of Ikushima being brutally beaten floods Akita's mind. Setsuna asserts that violence isn't a tool to determine winners or profit. It's closely tied to a person's dignity, an extreme philosophy hidden beneath the frail, schoolgirl facade. Setsuna's eyes sharpen like a razor. It's about being able to do what must be done when the moment comes. Akita breaks into a cold sweat. He realizes her thinking and actions are completely beyond the understanding of an ordinary person like him. She is willing to discard anything to achieve her aims. Meanwhile, on a deserted street, Zen and his henchmen sit sullenly in a black van. Their faces reveal deep worry and extreme tension over the impending kidnapping plan. The previous humiliating failure still remains an unhealed scar in their minds. Zen takes a long drag to steady himself. He warns his companions that kidnapping a high school girl is no joke, and that if anyone betrays them or backs out now, Sujajy certainly won't let them leave alive. They have no way back. He begins to explain Sujajy's filthy love business model, trapping women and crushing debt at host clubs, then forcing them into the sex industry to pay it off. A vicious, inescapable cycle of sin that Sujajy has painstakingly built. An ignorant henchman wonders if Sujajy needs to treat those women well to keep them. Zen just smirks sarcastically and replies, "Quite the opposite. Kindness does not exist in Sujajy's dictionary. He has far crueler methods to control his merchandise." Sujajy uses extreme violence as a tool to completely break the will of the unfortunate women. He beats them relentlessly until they understand that attempting to flee would cost them their lives. That's how he turns them into soulless slaves. Rumors of women dying at Sujajy's hands send chills down the henchmen's spines. At that moment, Setsuna's figure appears in the distance, strolling along unaware that she has entered the wolf's sights. "Look, the target's here. Tail that girl. Wait until it's quiet, then strike fast." Zen orders with lethal tone. He doesn't care if they're seen. The only objective is to shove Setsuna into that van at any cost. The van glides up behind Setsuna like a ghost stalking prey. The small girl walks casually along the familiar road, seemingly utterly unaware of the danger closing in behind her. A false moment of peace before the storm. Suddenly, brakes screech piercingly. The van door swings open and rough hands reach out from the shadows, lunging at Setsuna with the intent to capture. Everything happens so fast that bystanders are stunned, unable to react. A brazen daytime abduction unfolds. Setsuna is grabbed and yanked into the van by Sujajy's vicious henchmen. The girl appears utterly powerless against the raw strength of the burly men. The kidnapping plan initially succeeds. The van immediately peels away to cover its tracks. But seconds after the door slams shut, violent thuds and desperate screams erupt from inside. It seems the lamb they captured is not as easy as they thought. A loud bang resounds, and the van swerves on the road. Things appear to have spiraled out of Zen and his crew's control. A one-sided fight rages inside the cramped vehicle, and the outcome looks set to be shocking. Crash! The van's window shatters into pieces from a massive impact from within. A henchman is thrown against the glass, fresh blood splattering across the shards. It seems Setsuna has begun her brutal counterattack, turning the van into a miniature slaughterhouse. Sujajy answers the phone with a triumphant smirk, fully expecting news of a successful abduction. "Did you get her?" he asks, completely unaware of the absolute carnage taking place at the other end of the line. His confidence begins to waver as a chilling silence, punctuated only by muffled groans, filters through the receiver. Something has gone horribly wrong, and the predator is about to find himself on the receiving end of a very lethal greeting. The scene is horrific and unbelievable. The van is crushed as if by an explosion, windows shattered, and Zin's henchmen lie strewn about as blood flows across the ground. Amid the wreckage, Setsuna casually holds the kidnapper's phone, smiling brightly yet blood-soaked. "Nice to meet you. My name is Rikudo Setsuna." Sujajy, stunned on the other end, cannot believe his flawless abduction plan failed so miserably at the hands of schoolgirl. Setsuna shows no fear. She coldly asks if the boss has anything to say to her, all while nonchalantly finishing off the men, still gasping at her feet. He hisses through his teeth as he realizes this is the girl who defeated his men. Sujajy struggles to stay calm, but danger begins to gleam in his eyes. In contrast, Setsuna keeps her sweet, deadly smile. An encounter between two true predators has officially begun in that moment. Sujajy's rage flares up like a wildfire. He screams into the phone, spewing vicious insults and threatening to kill Setsuna for daring to insult his honor. "Who do you think you're sullying, you little brat?" His roar makes anyone who hears it shudder. He threatens to douse her house with gasoline and burn it down, murdering her entire family if she doesn't come kneeling to apologize. Those bloody threats seem to have no effect on Setsuna. The girl only replies with a bored, "Huh," as if listening to a lame joke. Setsuna's attitude is truly terrifying. She feels no pressure or concern for her family and casually asks Sujajy if he's trying to pick a fight with her. The soulless look in her eyes shows that violence is merely a game to her. Sujajy's eyes bulge at being disrespected by a schoolgirl. He clamps down his anger, about to unleash another volley of threats, but Setsuna cuts him off. With a chillingly polite tone, she asks the boss to introduce himself before they continue this conversation, a direct slap to Sujajy's arrogant ego. Even while being served by another woman, Sujajy's mind is now fixed on Setsuna. He declares he hates being belittled by women above all and vows to make her pay the steepest price possible. This grudge has become more personal than ever for the cruel pimp. He exhales, a perverse smile crossing his face. "Rikudo Setsuna, you're an interesting woman." Then he coldly hangs up, not giving her a chance to respond. Sujajy knows that to deal with a monster like Setsuna, he'll need a more insidious plan. And the boss has prepared an extremely dangerous trump card. Sitting trembling and terrified in his office is none other than Akita Mazamichi. Sujajy stares at him and asks with mockery, "Akita Mazamichi, right?" A calculated move showing Sujajy's ruthlessness in exploiting Setsuna's weakness. Akita can only sweat profusely, his face drained pale as he forces a crooked smile. He has no idea why he's been dragged into this mess. Being taken hostage by Sujajy not only puts Akita's life on the line, but turns him into a ruthless bargaining chip in the impending clash between two monsters. Chapter 2 ends with a looming question. What will Setsuna do to save her friend? Akita Mazamichi is falling into the worst situation of his life. Standing before him is Sujajy, a terrifying gangster with an oppressive presence. Right after school, Akita was kidnapped and shoved into a vehicle driven straight to Sujajy's office. From the man's demeanor, Akita knows this is no respectable operator. What is going to happen to me? Akita trembles, cold sweat running as he faces the kidnapper's sharp gaze and insinuating smile. Sujajy casually names a price of 3 million yen. He itemizes every fee from hospital bills to compensation, even propositioning Akita to introduce schoolgirls to earn commissions. But what truly makes Akita's hair stand on end is Sujajy's intention. He wants to repay the debt in the same way that Akita's girlfriend treated him before. "Hit me with that big hand of yours, I'll die." Akita panics as Sujajy raises a fist threateningly, the sensation of imminent death overwhelming him. This is all wrong, completely wrong. Akita screams in desperation, trying to explain the truth to save himself. He recounts the first time he met Rikudo Setsuna and how she beat him. Akita insists he's been dragged into this chaos and that Setsuna is neither his friend nor his lover. After hearing this, Sujajy unexpectedly changes his tone and smiles broadly. Ah, so that's it? You should have said so sooner. He acts friendly, as if he had never threatened Akita. Akita wonders bewildered if he's just been spared. Sujajy even apologizes for scaring him, calling them both victims of Setsuna. The mood turns oddly awkward when Sujajy asks if Akita is a virgin. When he admits it, Sujajy grins with smug satisfaction, as if he'd known all along. Sujajy begins pontificating that at this age, having no muscles and still being a virgin rightly earns a man's contempt from women. As soon as he finishes, he drags a beautiful girl into the conversation. He asserts that women are inherently weak and cannot resist raw muscle power. He squeezes the girl tightly, as if to prove his violent philosophy. Sujajy advises Akita to start working out at the gym to change his life, while the student can only force a nervous smile at the gangster's overenthusiasm. But then the ugly truth is revealed. Sujajy casually lifts the girl's shirt and utters disgusting words, pressuring Akita to do it with her to enhance the experience. Akita is horrified and shouts his objections. Sujajy nonchalantly calls it a free service to ensure Akita will never be looked down on by women again. Despite Akita frantically waving his hands in refusal, Sujajy orders the girl to begin her work. The poor student is completely at a loss. Akita struggles violently with his conscience. Refusing too strongly will enrage Sujajy, but if he complies, do I have to sacrifice my virginity here? But when the girl steps closer, Akita is shocked to see her body covered in a tangle of fresh and old bruises. Sujajy coldly reveals that this girl has had to serve dozens of others to pay off her debt. To him, she is merely an item to be traded. She's no different than a tool, a toy. Sujajy's cruel words and the girl's hollow eyes leave Akita stunned with disgust. Despite his fear, Akita grabs the girl's hand and tells her she doesn't have to do this. The gesture stuns both the girl and Sujajy. No, I won't, Akita says firmly. He's not a champion of women's rights, but his conscience won't allow him to be part of this cruelty. Anger finally snaps. Akita shouts right in Sujajy's face, declaring that forcing someone into such an act is the most pathetic thing a human can do. His whole body trembles, a volatile mix of terror and boiling resentment. Sujajy remains unfazed, his expression shifting to a condescending sneer. He pats the girl's head like she's nothing but property and mocks Akita for grandstanding, already plotting to pervert the boy's moral outrage. Sujajy looks down at Akita with a repulsive smirk. He makes a crude, mocking remark, misreading Akita's intense physical reaction as some perverse excitement. To a predator like Sujajy, everything is viewed through dominance and humiliation. The office erupts with Sujajy's manic laughter. He finds the image of weak, moralistic Akita preaching from such a compromised position hilarious. He ridicules him, likening him to the most pathetic brothel customer and stripping away the boy's dignity. Sujajy's laughter becomes uncontrollable as he points at Akita's helplessness. Behind him, even the bruised, broken girl lets out a cynical, pained chuckle at the absurdity of Akita's heroism. Akita stands paralyzed, insisting he won't do it, but his words hold no weight in the room. The laughter reaches a fever pitch. Sujajy's face contorts into a grotesque mask of amusement. To him, Akita is mere entertainment, a tiny insect trying to act like a man. His mockery fills the cramped space, echoing off the walls and drowning out Akita's inner voice. In Akita's mind, the cold facts of the law flash. Assault, Article 208, the rules he was raised on that declare violence a crime. But as Sujajy laughs at those rules, the contrast becomes unbearable. The law promises protection, yet Akita stands before an overwhelming injustice the criminal code cannot prevent. Then it happens. The snap. Akita's fist shoots forward, cutting through Sujajy's laughter with a sudden, violent impact. It's not a trained blow, but it's fueled by every ounce of humiliation and rage he suppressed. For the first time, Akita chooses to break the rules he once cherished. Akita recalls all the times he felt powerless. Those frustrating memories that haunt you for years. Moments of utter unfairness where your dignity was threatened by someone stronger. We're told to be better, smarter, but what do you do when intellect meets a boot to the face? There are rare moments when one must strike, when the only way to reclaim your soul is to lash out. Akita realizes he is no longer just a victim. He's willing to shout his defiance to the world, even if it means descending into the darkness he once feared. Standing over the stunned Sujajy, Akita's inner voice screams a dark new mantra: long live violence. The boy who relied on logic is replaced by someone who has tasted the raw power of a fist. It's a terrifying, exhilarating transformation. It was the first time in his life he'd ever struck someone. In that single impact, it felt like years of repressed anger and frustration were released. He remembers Setsuna's brutal efficiency, and for the first time, he doesn't just fear it. He understands it. He let it all out at once. His brain goes into overdrive, flooded with a cocktail of noradrenaline and dopamine. It's a biological explosion, a high more potent than any drug. In this state, fear vanishes, replaced by a singular, focused intensity. This is the physiological reality of the outbreak. Akita stands there, blood dripping from his mouth, his face bruised and battered. But he doesn't feel pain, not at all. The chemicals in his brain have turned the agony into a dull background noise, leaving only the razor clarity of the fight. Chapter 5. Outbreak marks the true birth of a monster. Sujajy recovers quickly, wiping a smear of blood from his temple. He's surprised, maybe even a little impressed. He didn't think the model student had it in him to actually throw a punch. He sighs, realizing things just got a lot more complicated. Sujajy smiles, dark and dangerous. "You're a crazy bastard, aren't you?" he says, his voice dripping with malice. He acknowledges Akita had the nerve to strike despite the disparity in strength. But now the professional will show the amateur what real violence looks like. The retaliation is swift and brutal. Sujajy's fist connects with Akita's face, sending him reeling. Sujajy isn't laughing anymore. He's furious. He decides a few more punches to Akita's face will make him feel better. This isn't a game. It's a lesson in pain. Suddenly the door swings open. A familiar silhouette stands in the frame, and her presence instantly changes the room's temperature. Rikudo Setsuna has arrived. Her expression is unreadable, her gaze fixed on the scene. Sujajy doesn't seem intimidated. He looks over his shoulder at Setsuna, mocking her. "So you're Rikudo Setsuna, huh? Sorry, I just beat the crap out of your boyfriend." He tries to maintain control, using Akita's broken form as a taunt. Beneath them, Akita can barely whisper her name through the blood. Setsuna remains silent, her dark eyes staring at Sujajy with chilling calm. Sujajy is confused by her lack of reaction. He asks if she's furious or if seeing her boyfriend like this has frightened her into silence. He's trying to provoke her, searching for a crack in her composure. Sujajy grabs Akita by the hair, forcing him to his knees as both a shield and a threat. He tells Setsuna she won't get off easy, threatening the most horrific acts of violence and demanding she kneel and beg for her life. He believes dominating the boy gives him power over the girl. Setsuna's lips curl into a slight, predatory smile. She looks at Sujajy not with fear, but with something bordering on pity. "Are you the sort of dog that barks but doesn't bite?" she asks. Her voice is soft, but carries weight that silences Sujajy's threats. She has seen through his bravado. Sujajy's face hardens. His insults have landed. He tosses his jacket aside, revealing a black tank top and a muscular frame. He's done talking. The inevitable follows. The fight begins. The office is about to become an arena. The time for morality and mercy is over. Sujajy's mind narrows to combat. Threat and mercy vanish, replaced by the instinct to crush the person before him. He clenches his fist, veins bulging with adrenaline. Sujajy takes a moment to size up his opponent. He hates to admit it, but he knows caution is necessary. His men told him she used some martial art to beat them. He raises his fists, vowing not to lower his guard just because she's a woman. He knows the danger is real. Meanwhile, Setsuna settles into her stance, movements fluid and hauntingly precise. As her foot shifts on the floor, she readies her opening strike with no wasted energy or tension. She is a machine built for combat, and the office's atmosphere changes instantly as she engages. In a sudden flash, Setsuna strikes. The punch is almost a blur, landing square on Sujajy's face and sending a shockwave through the room. The muscle Sujajy boasted about proves useless against her blinding speed and flawless technique. This is not just a fight, it's the start of a calculated demolition. Setsuna's opening blow is followed by a relentless barrage. She moves with a terrifying, liquid speed, her fists a blur as they hit Sujajy's face. The thug can barely track her movements, let alone defend himself. Each strike is precise, designed to disorient and overwhelm. Sujajy grunts in pain, but he's a street veteran. As Setsuna lunges for another strike, he manages to grab her arm, his superior strength momentarily stopping her momentum. It's a desperate maneuver, but for a man who lives by brute force, it's the only way he knows to survive such an opponent. Setsuna doesn't miss a beat. Using his grip against him, she pulls him forward and smashes his head into her knee. It's a flawless combo, executed without hesitation. In her world, combat is art, every movement a brushstroke. Yet the narration hints at something darker, something Setsuna didn't expect. Despite the blood on his face, Sujajy is smiling. The text reveals a terrifying truth. Every punch and knee fell exactly according to his plan. He wasn't merely taking hits. He was testing her, waiting for the perfect opening to use his one true advantage. Sujajy may lack formal martial arts training, but his line of work has given him more hand-to-hand experience than many professionals. He's fought and won countless brawls. He knew exactly how to absorb Setsuna's strikes, bracing to protect vital spots. He used her aggression to lure her in and set his trap. With a sudden burst of raw power, Sujajy counters. He summons his massive strength to hurl Setsuna across the room like a rag doll. She slams into a weight bench, wood and metal crack loudly. Akita can only watch in horror as his only hope seems crushed. Setsuna lies amid the wreckage, her uniform torn and her body battered. Sujajy stands over her, his shadow looming. He mocks her skill, claiming her predictable thinking and reliance on technique won't win in a real fight. To him, all her training is mere parlor trickery. Flexing his massive arm, Sujajy prepares his final lesson. Sheer force, he declares, is all that matters in a fight. He believes that no matter how skilled you are, enough power will eventually break you. He's the embodiment of raw, unchecked aggression, and he thinks he's already won. Sujajy is a sadist. He doesn't want the fight to end yet. He tells Setsuna to get up, claiming he isn't satisfied with just a few hits. He wants to break her completely, physically and mentally. But as he lunges to continue the assault, something in Setsuna's eyes changes. She isn't done. In a move of desperate brilliance, Setsuna drops to the ground. As Sujajy closes the distance, she snakes her legs around his, locking him in place. It's a sudden tactical shift that catches the brute completely off guard. The predator becomes the prey in seconds. Sujajy stumbles, his momentum working against him as Setsuna uses her lower body to trip him. The sheer force he's proud of is useless when his base is swept out from under him. He hits the floor with a heavy thud, the air leaving his lungs in a shocked grunt. Sujajy looks down in confusion as Setsuna pins him from below. "What the hell are you trying to do?" he barks, his voice tinged with the first hint of genuine fear. He doesn't grasp the technicality of the move, only that he's suddenly lost his advantage. He's trapped in her web. The narration explains the technical brilliance of the move, the cross guard in judo. It's a position designed for a smaller fighter to neutralize a larger one, using the leg's strength to control the opponent's torso and prevent powerful strikes. Setsuna demonstrates that skill is the true master of force. Sujajy tries to pull away, but the guard makes it nearly impossible for him to hit her effectively. Every time he winds up a punch, Setsuna shifts her weight, using her legs to keep him off balance. Then she transitions into another technique, one that will seal his fate. She executes the kusakari, a sweeping leg maneuver that completely destabilizes Sujajy. He falls forward, and in one fluid motion, Setsuna rolls with him. The tide of the battle has turned. Sujajy, the man of force, is now being toyed with by a master of technique. Setsuna instantly mounts him, her knees pinning his arms to his sides. She's in the dominant position now, her face inches from his. A dark, satisfied smile plays on her lips. She has turned his world upside down, and now he stares up at the face of death. Setsuna mocks him, her voice a sharp contrast to his earlier bravado. "Dumb ass," she whispers, her eyes cold and predatory. She asks if he still believes sheer force is all that matters. Sujajy can only stare up at her, jaw set in a mix of rage and disbelief as she prepares to finish him. "I'll teach you something better," she says, her smile widening and growing more terrifying. "The only thing that truly matters is violence." It's a chilling statement of her philosophy, that skill and brutality combined are ultimate power. She raises her fist, a dark omen of the pain to come. The first punch connects with a sickening crack. Setsuna isn't holding back. She puts her entire weight into the blow, her fist a blur as it strikes Sujajy's unprotected face. This isn't a duel anymore. It's an execution. She pours all her cold, calculated rage into every strike. The diagram illustrates the mount position, the most dominant spot in grappling. Chapter 6, World of Violence, introduces the true nature of Setsuna's combat style. From here, Sujajy has no escape and no way to defend himself. The fight has reached its brutal conclusion. The advantage of the mount is simple and devastating. You can restrain your opponent using only your lower body, leaving your hands free to strike with full force. It's a position that showcases the practical brilliance of mixed martial arts, turning a human body into a weapon of absolute suppression. Setsuna rains down blows, her fists moving with the rhythm of a piston. Each strike testifies to her mastery of violence. Sujajy's face is a mask of blood and bruises. His sheer force is completely neutralized by the leverage and control Setsuna has over him. She strikes with full strength, and he has no choice but to take it. Sujajy tries to flail, his hands reaching out in a desperate attempt to push her off or strike back. But from the bottom of a mount, his punches carry no power. Setsuna takes the hits without flinching, focused entirely on destroying the man beneath her. Sujajy grunts in agony, his pride shattered along with his bones. Setsuna lets out a dark, melodic laugh that chills the air. That tickles," she mocks as Sujajy's desperate, weak counters barely graze her cheek. In this position, the power dynamic is completely inverted. His blows are meaningless, only heightening her amusement as she tightens her technical grip. Sujajy flails frantically beneath her, but he is trapped in an inescapable prison. Every attempt to escape only reveals another opening for her to exploit. The office, once his seat of absolute power, has become the stage for his systematic destruction. He is no longer an opponent. He is a specimen, and Setsuna is about to show the full depth of her technical dominance. Setsuna's technical dominance is absolute. As the narration explains, she maintains her dominant mount by precisely shifting her weight, countering every attempt Sujajy makes to buck her off. It's a physical manifestation of her mental control. She isn't just winning. She's dictating the terms of his existence. Each punch that lands is a splat of broken bone and blood. The diagram shows there are, theoretically, ways to escape a mount. One could bridge their hips or attempt a roll. But these techniques only work if you have the presence of mind to execute them. Against a monster like Setsuna, who gives you no room to breathe, theory quickly gives way to the harsh reality of pain. Without practice, knowledge, or even a basic understanding of combat mechanics, Sujajy is helpless. Every time he moves, he only opens himself to another strike. The mount has become a trap where the moment you slip up, your face meets her fist. It's a brutal, repetitive cycle of punishment. Despair finally begins to set in. Sujajy, the man who believed his strength made him invincible, realizes he's staring at his own death. He summons every ounce of his massive power to escape, but he's trapped in an inescapable prison of fists. The strength he worshipped has completely failed him. In a flash of memory, we see why Sujajy became the man he is. He was once weak, mocked by women and society alike. He went to the gym, built his body into a wall of muscle, and found that strength changed everything. It made him popular, respected, and feared. To him, strength wasn't just power, it was his salvation. "It's all I've got," Sujajy screams, a final, desperate cry as he tries to throw one last punch from the bottom. He's fighting for the only thing that gave his life meaning. But Setsuna just watches him with that same eerie, knowing smile, her eyes seeing right through his frantic struggle. The fight is effectively over. Sujajy lies broken and bleeding, his face a mask of agony. Setsuna looks down at him and lets out a soft, chilling chuckle. She has dismantled him completely, both as a fighter and as a man. The sheer force he relied on was no match for the cold reality of her violence. Setsuna stands over her defeated foe, her voice calm as she dissects his worldview. She acknowledges that his belief in the strongest prevailing is a simple, clear way of seeing the world, the logic of the predator. But as she looms over his shattered body, she prepares to introduce him to a far more complex reality. "Violence is something deeper," she whispers, her eyes gleaming with a dark, perverse joy. "And more interesting." With those words, she delivers a final, bone-jarring smash to his head. For Setsuna, violence isn't just a means to an end. It's an exploration of the limits of the human spirit, and she loves what she sees. Silence finally falls over the office, save for the heavy breathing of the survivors. Sujajy is unconscious, his body crumpled among the debris. Setsuna looks around, asking about the girl who was being held captive. Akita, still reeling, manages to tell her that the girl ran away the moment the chaos started. The office is a graveyard of Sujajy's ambition. Setsuna turns her attention to Akita. He's a mess of blood and bruises, his face a testament to the beating he took before she arrived. She notes he seems accustomed to getting beaten, almost as if it's become part of his identity. She asks if he needs to go to the hospital, her tone almost casual, as if they hadn't just survived a life-or-death struggle. Akita remains silent for a long moment, his face in shadow. When he finally speaks, his voice is cold and heavy with resentment. "This is all your fault," he mutters. He blames her presence and her violence for everything that has gone wrong in his once orderly life. He's a victim of her world, and he knows it. Memories of the past few days flash through Akita's mind. The fights, the kidnapping, the senseless brutality he's been forced to witness and endure, all because Setsuna Rikudo stepped into his life. He was supposed to be a success, a model student on a peaceful path, not a punching bag for street thugs. He trembles as he stares at her, resentment boiling over. He repeats that it's all her fault, that she dragged him into this hell. Setsuna just watches, her expression unreadable, as if waiting for something she knows is coming. Akita is at a breaking point, and the next words he speaks will change everything. A dark, terrifying smile slowly spreads across Akita's face. Despite the pain and the anger, he admits a truth he's been hiding from himself. "It felt so good, hitting someone who pissed me off." In that moment, the monster within him finally finds a voice. The chemicals in his brain have done their work. Akita looks Setsuna dead in the eye, his fear replaced by a singular, burning ambition. Will you teach me how to fight? He asks. Setsuna's smile widens as she asks why he would want to learn her dark art. The transformation is nearly complete. The model student is gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. Akita raises his fist, pointing it directly at her. His answer is simple and terrifying, so that I can hit you. He wants to master her violence, so he can one day overcome the person who taught it to him. It's a declaration of war, a promise of future conflict that only someone like Setsuna could appreciate. Setsuna doesn't pull away. Instead, she draws him into a warm, almost maternal hug. "Of course, my dear Akita," she whispers, her voice filled with a twisted affection. "Welcome to the world of violence." She has successfully molded him in her image, birthing a new predator into the night, a chilling baptism. The title card marks the end of the beginning. Introduction. The awakening, complete. Night falls over the city, and a new rumor begins to spread among the street gangs. The Sujajy, stories of a lone attacker picking fights for no reason, leaving a trail of broken bodies. The hunt has begun. On a street corner, two thugs gossip about the Sujajy. One, a man with bleached hair, laughs off the idea of some high school kid being a threat. He's arrogant, convinced of his own strength, unaware that his world has just become much more dangerous. They think it's just a fairy tale to scare the weak. The thugs boast about their gym-honed muscles, promising to knock out the Sujajy the moment he shows his face. But as they laugh, a shadow falls over them. A pair of sneakers stops just a few feet away, the footsteps unnoticed in their overconfidence. The predator has found his next meal. Akita Mazamichi stands there, a bandage on his cheek and a dark, predatory smile on his face. He clenches his fist, anticipation of the fight clear in his eyes. "Do you guys want to have a fight with me?" he asks. The model student is dead. The Sujajy is born. For these two thugs, the nightmare is just beginning. Welcome back to Bouryoku Banzai. Chapter 4 opens with a tense incident when Akita and Mazamichi accidentally bump shoulders with a thug on the street. A fateful shove sparks the trouble. The man immediately erupts, dumping all the blame on Akita. He growls, waiting for an apology, but Akita is no longer the timid boy he once was. He stays silent, with no intention of backing down. From the cold steel in Akita's eyes, we understand he is ready. A fight is inevitable when neither side will give an inch. The scene rewinds to a week earlier. After being beaten up in the incident with the debt collectors, Akita took a long time to recover. Now, with his wounds healed, he's finally back to face reality. Back at school, everything seems peaceful. But Rikudu Setsuna, sitting beside him, makes it impossible for Akita to concentrate. She is the source of all the trouble in his life. Ikushima, the arrogant classmate, still looks down on Akita. He feels annoyed because Akita seems to be getting special attention from Setsuna after their last fight. Meanwhile, Setsuna and her pretty gyro friend laugh and joke together. Setsuna casually compliments Akita as a rather cute guy, despite his bookish, somewhat frail appearance. Setsuna's suggestive praise makes Akita bury his face in his books to hide his embarrassment. He can't tell if she's sincere or just toying with him. Their closeness enrages Ikushima, who threatens them both. But look, the girls don't care at all. They even tease him back, making him look ridiculous. Akita sighs in frustration. He knows that being close to Setsuna has brought countless needless troubles and hatred from those around him. He needs a change. Akita's thoughts grow more extreme. He realizes that to escape Setsuna's manipulation, the only way is to become stronger than her, even to defeat this goddess of war. A decision is made. Akita seeks out Setsuna in a quiet corner of the schoolyard and directly asks her to teach him how to really fight. He wants to learn to survive in this violent world. Setsuna laughs with amusement at the bookish student's request. She casually asks, "So where should we start?" Her eyes gleam with mischief and danger. Instead of teaching in the usual way, Setsuna offers a crazy suggestion. Why don't you go out there and pick some random thug to pick a fight with? She wants Akita to learn from the harshest reality. Akita is stunned, unable to believe his ears. He's looking for a teacher, not someone encouraging him to seek death. "What?" is all he can manage to say. Setsuna explains that to truly understand violence and his own strength, he must throw himself into a real fight. There is no lesson more valuable than a punch straight to the face. Akita protests in panic. He shouts that he's just an ordinary student with no knowledge or fighting experience. Charging into a fight now would be suicide. He fears he'll be beaten senseless again like last time. The fear is clear on his face as he tries to explain the huge skill gap to his teacher. Setsuna's gaze suddenly turns cold and hollow. She looks at Akita and spits out bluntly, "You're such a fool." Contempt is obvious in her voice. She emphasizes that if he stays scared and never dares to try, he will never improve. Violence isn't something learned by reading books or empty theory. Then Setsuna breaks into her usual seductive smile. She promises to be a kind teacher who won't abandon her lost student and will teach him one single technique to turn the tide. Setsuna asserts that with this move, Akita can win most fights easily. Akita listens as if he's watching a cheap martial arts infomercial on TV. And the special training begins. Akita is astonished by what he's being taught. Everything happens so fast he can't collect himself, only following Setsuna's brutal instructions. Back in the present, Akita Masamichi drops into a focused stance right in front of the looming threat. This is the moment of truth, the first real application of the calf kick technique he's honed under Setsuna's ruthless eye. The thug can only laugh at the display. In his eyes, a kid like Akita has no right to resist. In his world, the weak exist only to obey. He prepares to mete out the punishment he thinks is deserved, oblivious that his reign of terror is about to hit a brick wall. This thug is the embodiment of a neighborhood bully. To him, violence isn't a crime, it's a privilege. He believes he has every right to beat someone one-sidedly, as long as he find a reason. Following his own twisted logic, he's doled out countless beatings to friends, girlfriends, even co-workers. He's used to seeing people quiet down the moment his fist connects. But standing across from Akita Masamichi this time, he senses things might be different. In Akita's mind, Rikudo Setsuna's voice echoes like a dark mantra. She taught him that the only way for someone like him to survive is to land the first hit and end the fight in one blow, a preemptive strike before the opponent can react. Akita was skeptical, thinking things never go that conveniently in real life. But Rikudo just smiled that predatory smile of hers and promised there was a technique, a conveniently powerful one, that could change everything. The thug laughs, taunting Akita, completely unaware of the lethal lesson the boy just received. The technique Rikudo mentioned is said to have originated in the ancient art of Muay Thai, wreaking havoc on battlefields long before it hit the streets. In modern mixed martial arts, it has become a standard, essential move. It's effective because it strikes from a blind spot, turning a simple kick into a career-ending injury. The thug threatens to kill him, but Akita is already focused on the target. The beauty of this move is the range. You strike from so far away that no counterattack can reach you. Akita leaps forward suddenly, swinging his leg with everything he has, not like a fighter, but like someone kicking a soccer ball into a goal. He channels every ounce of fear, frustration, and newfound aggression into this one motion. The air whistles as his shin cuts through the space between them. Crack! The impact is deafening. Akita Masamichi has officially entered the world of Bouryoku, violence. He landed perfectly, the calf kick. Chapter 8, The Taste of Victory. Akita stands his ground as the realization of what he's done begins to sink in while he watches the brute's leg buckle. The calf kick isn't just about pain, it's about anatomy. By using the harder parts of his leg, the shin or ankle, to strike the tibialis anterior muscle, one of the softest, most vulnerable spots on the human body, Akita has effectively paralyzed his opponent's mobility. The thug's face contorts in a way he's never felt before. This isn't just a bruise, it's an agonizing, electric shock of pain that shoots straight to his brain. He gasps, clutching his leg as the world starts to spin. Damn, that hurts. He wheezes, unable to comprehend how a scrawny kid like Akita could inflict such damage. He's forced to his knees, his aggressive posture shattered in an instant. Akita is stunned. I hit him. I actually did it. He thinks, his heart racing. He followed Rikudo Setsuna's instructions perfectly, and for the first time in his life, he's the one standing over his attacker. But the victory feels incomplete. And that's it, he wonders. The thug is still conscious, still full of rage. He trembles with fury, demanding to know what Akita's problem is. The realization hits Akita. What does he do now? The thug isn't giving up. He roars threats, promising to kill Akita for the humiliation. Akita begins to panic. He only knows this one move, and his opponent still seems full of energy. Fear starts creeping back in. As the thug charges forward, Akita freezes. He landed the kick, but now what? He doesn't know any other moves. He's trapped in a nightmare where his one successful strike wasn't enough to end the threat. However, the calf kick has a secondary, major consequence the thug is about to discover. Beyond the immediate, blinding pain, the structural integrity of his body is failing. His nervous system is screaming at him to stop. The tibialis anterior muscle stabilizes the legs and allows a person to stand upright. By incapacitating it, Akita has made it physically impossible for the man to stay on his feet. The thug tries to lunge, but his leg simply refuses to obey. Panic finally appears in the bully's eyes. Wait, he cries, his hand raised in a futile attempt to stop the boy he was just threatening to kill. The power dynamic has completely flipped. Akita doesn't hesitate. He swings again, the impact echoing through the narrow alley. He's no longer just defending himself. He's experiencing the raw, unbridled power of being the aggressor. The thug collapses, his screams of Kaya and Doug filling the air. He clutches his ruined leg, the pain so intense that his brain can no longer process anger. Only pure, unadulterated suffering. Please, spare me. I give up. I give up. The man who was a predator seconds ago is now a begging mess on the pavement. Akita stands breathing hard, his eyes wide with a mix of shock and something far darker. The alley falls silent as Akita Mazamichi stares down at the broken man at his feet. Awan? He whispers, the shock of defeating an experienced thug beginning to transform into a profound, terrifying realization. In that moment, Akita's moral compass shatters. He realizes that the evil of violence is just a viewpoint for the losers. Stripped of morality, the only thing left is the divine high of absolute dominance, a primal dopamine rush that's about to become his new addiction. Victory is a hell of a drug. Akita Mazamichi stands there, fists raised to the sky, soaking in the raw, primal rush of his first ever win. For a moment, he's not just a student, he's a conqueror. Rikudo Setsuna watches from the sidelines with an amused, knowing smile. Congratulations on your first fight, she says, her tone dripping with a mix of pride and something more predatory. Akita is skeptical. Are you actually praising me? He asks, adjusting his glasses. Setsuna admits she didn't think he had it in him, but he picked up the technique she taught remarkably well. Of course, she can't resist a little teasing, saying she thought he'd lose his first 3 fights. But the lesson isn't over yet. Rikudo Setsuna stands and challenges him. Let me have a taste, she exclaims. She wants Akita to try that same calf kick on her. Akita hesitates. He doesn't want to hurt her, but she insists. Driven by adrenaline and a need to prove himself, Akita takes the bait. I won't hold back, he shouts, launching himself forward with the same technique that just took down the street thug. As he swings his leg, Setsuna's expression changes. There's no fear in her eyes, only a sharp, cold focus. She's not just a teacher. She's a predator watching a cub. The impact is loud and sudden, but it doesn't go the way Akita expected. Instead of her leg buckling, he feels like he just kicked a steel pillar. Time seems to slow as their gazes lock. Akita realizes in an instant that he's made a massive mistake. The hunter has become the hunted once again. OWWW. It hurts so much. Akita collapses, clutching his own leg in agony. Setsuna just sits there, unfazed, giggling at his miserable state. It's a harsh reminder of the gap between them. Lesson time. Rikudu explains that while a proper calf kick targets soft muscle, if an opponent aligns their shin with your kick, the one who gets hurt is the attacker. She calls this defensive maneuver a cut. It's the ultimate counter to the very move she taught him. The best way to learn is with your body, she says, standing over the groveling Akita. She's ruthless. She wants him to understand the consequences of violence from both sides, even if it means breaking him in the process. Akita complains that there's no way everyone knows such advanced techniques, but Setsuna points out that since he's going to keep picking fights, he's bound to run into someone who does. She's grooming him for a world where every move has a counter. The scene shifts to a bright, crowded press conference. A new star is in the spotlight. Now, then, champion. A reporter begins, addressing a handsome, confident man seated at the center of the table. This is Subaru. He's just taken a title and isn't shy about his ego. He claims he's simply delighted to have proven he's the strongest fighter in Japan. A reporter challenges his cockiness, noting he hasn't even defended the title yet. The reporter brings up Mr. Perfect, Kamiza, a bantamweight champion with a legendary record. Subaru listens with a blank, almost bored expression as the man gushes over the national treasure. Fuwa acknowledges Kamiza as a great athlete, but he quickly pivots to a darker, more elitist philosophy. He respects the sport, but he doesn't respect the restrictions. To Fuwa, true martial arts is about who is truly the strongest, without the safety nets of weight classes or gender. Only the men's heavyweight division is true martial arts, he declares. To him, everything else is child's play. Introducing the mixed martial arts team, MASH, heavyweight champion, Fuwa Subaru. He's a man who aims to be the strongest in the world, and he doesn't care whose feelings he hurts to get there. Footage of his recent title match plays. Contrary to expectations, it was a complete slaughter. Fuwa is shown deftly evading the previous champion's fierce attacks with the grace of a dancer and the lethality of serpent. The champion staggers, opening himself up for a split second. That's all Fuwa Subaru needs. He launches a counterattack that lands with pinpoint precision. Bam! A devastating punch connects. The impact is so powerful it sends blood and sweat flying through the air. It's a clean, brutal knockout that leaves no doubt. The former champion collapses to the floor, unable to get up. Fuwa Subaru stands over him, one arm raised in victory. It's a terrifying display of what a true heavyweight can do when they stop playing games. Across the city, the video of this fight is trending. The strongest man in all of Japan, the headlines scream. Fuwa Subaru has become an overnight sensation, his name on everyone's lips. Akita sits on the school roof, lunch in hand, mesmerized by the footage of Fuwa Subaru on his phone. So cool, he whispers, but the awe is quickly followed by a chilling reality check. He's a realist at heart, and knows that if he ever stepped into the ring with a monster like Fuwa, he'd be beaten to a pulp before he could blink. It's been a couple of days since Akita won his first fight, and the initial dopamine rush has completely worn off. In its place, a heavy, suffocating worry has taken root. He's tasted blood, but he's beginning to realize just how deep and dangerous the ocean of violence truly is, and how vulnerable he is with only one move in his arsenal. Akita's mind is racing. He realizes that while the calf kick is powerful, it's not a magic bullet. If his opponent actually knows MMA, they could easily counter him, leaving him completely defenseless. Will I win the next one? He wonders, the taste of victory already being replaced by the bitter tang of doubt. He stares at his phone, the footage of pro fighters haunting him. I can't keep fighting knowing only the calf kick, he thinks. He's starting to understand that in the world of true violence, being a one-trick pony is a death sentence. Watching Fuwa Subaru, Akita sees what he's missing: solid defense and top-tier counterattacks. That's the level he needs to reach if he ever wants to stand on his own 2 feet. That's why he goes back to the only teacher he has, Rikudu Setsuna. You find her on the roof, sitting peacefully under an umbrella. Teach me a new technique, he begs. But Setsuna's response is a flat, smiling, I won't. She believes getting distracted by other moves before mastering the basics isn't wise. Akita is frustrated. He doesn't want wisdom, he wants results. She leans in, her voice low and intoxicating. Besides, Akita, you already know a pretty effective move. To her, the calf kick is a masterpiece, but to Akita, it feels like a liability after she showed him how easily it can be countered. I don't understand what you're saying at all. Akita snaps. He's tired of her riddles and her constant psychological games. He wants to know why she won't help him grow. When you block me, I feel useless, he confesses. The memory of his leg buckling against her shin is a fresh wound. He believes that if he knew more moves, he'd feel more confident, more like the victor he wants to be. Setsuna's expression goes cold. There's no such thing as feeling at ease in violence, she states. It's a chilling reminder that in her world, violence isn't a sport or a hobby. It's a constant, terrifying state of being. She lectures him on the raw truth of conflict. In the heat of the moment, there is no aggressor or victim. There is only the result, victor or loser. Everyone involved is subject to the same brutal reality. That is violence, she concludes. Akita just stares at her, unable to argue. He knows she's right, but he hates how much power she has over him. You understood? She asks with a final, pleasant smile that doesn't reach her eyes. He makes a silent vow. He's done being her plaything. I'm going to find a new teacher, he tells himself as he walks away, leaving Setsuna alone on the rooftop. He needs someone normal, someone who doesn't speak in blood-soaked parables. Setsuna watches him go, her gaze unreadable. Ah, Akita, she whispers. Is she disappointed, or is she just waiting for the inevitable moment when he realizes he can't escape her? Akita takes his fate into his own hands and heads to the Versus martial arts gym. It's a clean, professional place, exactly what he's looking for. He's nervous, but determined to learn from a real professional. Inside, he's greeted by a friendly face. Akita, I've been waiting for you. It's the man himself, the champion, Fuwa Subaru. Akita is floored. He never expected a personal training session to be led by the literal strongest man in Japan. Akita can barely contain his shock. You're the champion, Fuwa Subaru, right? Fuwa just smiles modestly, confirming that he is indeed the man Akita saw in the news. This feels too good to be true. You're a teacher? For ordinary people like me? Akita asks. Fuwa laughs and admits that while he's a champion, training sessions are what actually pay the bills because his team is pretty stingy. He's human, approachable, and everything Setsuna isn't. Well, let's start our training. It'll help relieve your stress, Fuwa says with a wink. Akita is already feeling better. This is exactly what he needed, a positive, encouraging environment. What a great guy, Akita thinks, his eyes practically sparkling. He's convinced that Fuwa will teach him 100 things more than that violent girl ever could. He feels like he's finally found his luck. But then, a shadow falls over his joy. Through the window, he sees a familiar pair of eyes watching him. His heart stops. "WHA?" he screams. How did she find him? Setsuna Rikudu walks right in as if she owns the place. Cheating on me is terrible, Akita, she says with chilling sweetness. Fuwa is confused, asking if she's Akita's girlfriend, but Akita is too busy panicking to explain, especially since Setsuna is here for more than just him. Setsuna ignores Akita and focuses on Fuwa. She brings up his infamous press conference line. Everything besides men's heavyweight is just a sport. She looks him dead in the eye and asks if he remembers saying that. The air in the gym suddenly becomes very heavy. Fuwa doesn't back down. He admits he got flamed like crazy online for it, but when Setsuna asks if he'll take it back, his answer is a firm no. He's a man of conviction, even if those convictions are arrogant. Because it's true, he adds with a cocky grin. He explains his skewed worldview. He looks at the other fighters in the gym and asks, if they thought otherwise, why don't they fight in the heavyweight division? Because they know they can't beat the big guys, he concludes. To him, size is the only metric that matters. To Subaru, it's all just objective reality. The big guys win, and everyone else is just playing a sport. He stands tall, looking down at the high school girl with a smirk, completely unaware that he is measuring strength by the wrong yardstick. He hasn't realized yet that true violence doesn't care about weight classes, and he is about to meet its ultimate practitioner. Setsuna's expression stays a mask of calm, but her eyes betray a deep, unsettling darkness. Akita can only watch in terror as she prepares to turn his normal training session into a nightmare. She's almost grateful he brought her here. Subaru has given the perfect opportunity for a live demonstration. If you're truly aiming to be the strongest, she challenges the champion, then you wouldn't refuse my request, right? The air in the versus gym suddenly turns ice cold. Rikudo Setsuna, still in her school uniform, stands before Japan's heavyweight champion with an unsettlingly calm smile. "Will you fight me?" she asks, her voice carrying a weight that utterly contradicts her slight frame. Akita Mazumichi is practically hyperventilating in the background. He knows Setsuna doesn't play by the rules of sport, and he knows Subaru has just inadvertently challenged a monster. The chapter ends on the ultimate cliffhanger, a clash of ideologies between a champion's arrogance and the terrifying reality of true violence. Who will prevail when the world's strongest man meets a girl who lives to kill? Find out next time.